and I had set up the Google Meet that I thought would link everybody in, including Mr. Paravani and the office. And for some reason, uh, they told me that it expired. I was at the doctor's office, and I was just checking the email, see if everything's okay with the class, and noticed there's a problem. I had to leave the office and find a mall with the Tim Hortons. I don't have Wi-Fi or data on my phone connected, and sent them an email, and I'm glad everything worked out well afterwards. Okay, so my apologies for all the mix-up. I thought I had done everything, and I guess it's a new world, and we're learning how to do this. So my apologies. Just before we start, Zilan, could you just type in whether or not you have now joined cohort C? So I notice you're online, but you're supposed to be in class today. So Zilan? Second. Hey, I got you, Kevin. Thank you. Zilan? Okay, Zilan, the office has to confirm that you are switching to cohort C. Is it just for today, or are you back again in 2 days? Okay, so unfortunately, I'll let the office know that you're online, but I still have to mark you absent. This is what Mr. Servideo has told us to do, that when you sign up to be in class, then you're expected to be here. But if you send an email to the office, they'll make sure that that they know that you're online. Okay, thank you, Zilan. Just had to check with you. Okay, everyone? Okay, that happens. Okay, so today I'm going to do a couple of things. Take up the secular world assignment with you, and then I'll review for the test. We'll talk about the test. If you don't want me to do it tomorrow, I can do it on Thursday, but we'll talk later on in the afternoon, later on in the class, whether you still have it scheduled for today. The test, just so you can think about it when we come back to it after we take up the assignment from yesterday, is going to be the same thing as you did in your charts. I'm going to give you a story, an interesting story. This one happens to be a true story. And then I'm going to ask you to answer one question only, or two questions maybe. What would Aristotle say in this situation? What would Immanuel Kant say in the situation? And what would Emmanuel Levinas say in the situation? It's similar to the chart you handed in, the ethical experience, where you have to apply all three philosophers' ideas to the four situations we looked at the beginning of the year, which is the scream, the beggar, I have to, it's intolerable. It's the same format, except for this time, rather than do it in point form, you'll have to write it out in not essay format, but in answers where you'll have at least four ideas from each of the philosophers. Okay, so we'll talk about that later on. Actually, you want to talk about it now? Let's do it now. Okay, so first of all, I'll ask any questions from the class, and then I'll go online. James. I haven't done anything since then. I can go over. I'll go over the charts with you later. I got to figure out a way of getting you back your assignments. I wanted to give you a progress report, but things didn't work out this weekend for me with family commitments. But I will give you hopefully a progress report by the end of the evening, just for the first unit, and then I'll update it by the end of the week for the second unit. Okay. But most people got 12 out of 12 on the chart. The ones that I finished marking, I only have about 5 or 6 people that handed it in. They were well done. Actually, for you guys, I should bring my binder here, and you can I can give it to you, but you can't touch the paper. At least with a pencil, you can flip over. Okay, so I'll do that. Before I go to people online, any other questions here? Any other questions so far about the possible tests? Just the idea. Just one story, and then Aristotle 4 marks, so 4 ideas. Kant 4 marks, 4 ideas, and Levinas 4 marks, 4 ideas. And then what I ask you to do is after every idea, skip a line, so that I know you're moving on to another idea, and you know you're going to another idea, and then you can keep passing them 4. And you'll get 1 mark for each. That's 12 marks. And then one question I may give you after that is, what do you think should be done in the situation? Or is this an ethical situation, a morality course? So that question is whatever you think, but the only problem is going to be you're going to have to justify it. And you can explain for any reason, and your explanation is going to get you the full marks. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking of doing. Any other questions from the class first? Okay, let's look on the sidebar. Let's take a look here, see how it goes. Michelle, how were last week's tests done? Like, was there any major problems? No, there weren't any major problems. That's why I was hoping to give you back your progress report. You can see your marks. Most of you did really well. Some of you messed up a few places. And I should give you an opportunity to ask and see it. So once I give you your progress report, if you have any questions about your test, you send me an email. I will scan your test because I printed out, I marked with a red pen, and then you can take a look at it. Most of them are really well done. Michelle, if you wait a second, after I take up all the questions, I'll talk about the test and tell you what problems we had to test, so prepare you for the next one. Okay, so good question, Michelle. Right away, one of the problems for the previous test is Protagoras. And a lot of you lost 2 needless marks because for Protagoras, he believed that humans are the measure of all things. So as a human, you define what is virtuous and what's not. It's up to how you feel about it. And therefore, Protagoras would say to the boy that you can do whatever you want, including making fun of people and lying and cheating and everything else. Because that makes you happy, that's great. A lot of you thought or mistaken Protagoras was Socrates, who says, no, there is some type of objective truth that you should be able to act a proper way, to be just, etc. But Protagoras says, no, do whatever you want. Also remember that others can do whatever they want as well. So some people lost 2 marks. The last question, there was a problem with a lot of students. The correct answer is that Socrates believes that you should be able to give the boy a chance to learn, to grow up, to find out what he did wrong and improve, to become virtuous. And therefore, the best answer would be to forgive him and hope that he will mature. A lot of you said, no, punish the guy. Don't give him any chances. You got 1 mark for that. But you got 2 marks if you said, give the guy a chance. So that's the only other problem I found with the test. Pretty well, the rest were okay. I was kind of happy with the rest of the test. The only time you may have lost marks is if you didn't refer back to the story. A lot of you would define a term but never get to the story. On the virtuous question, how the boy could become virtuous, you're supposed to be Socrates talking to the boy. So Socrates says, be fair, treat people equitably. Think about other people and give them what's their due, which is respect and the truth. And so if you define justice, you got 1 mark or half a mark. If you applied it back to the story, you got the full mark. But a lot of students didn't apply it back to the story. So in my class, always refer to the story. If it's a simple definition, no. If it's has to do with the story, always apply to the story. So you have total freedom to pick whatever aspect and justify your answer using the story. Okay? So there's a few problems with the test. We'll talk about this in a little while. Okay, so Ben asks, sir, does it mean that we have to explain what they would do or what they would just say is virtuous or that situation to do? Okay, for Ben, it's the same thing as in the chart that you worked on last week. And that is you would, if, for example, if it was Immanuel Kant, you'd refer to the maxim. So in the situation, think of the first maxim, do not do to others what you do not want done to you. So you get a mark for that, and then you apply that to the situation that I gave you. Then you use the second maxim and define what the second maxim is, and you have all your notes, the PowerPoints, everything that you have, your homework questions. So you would take the second maxim, write down, always treat people as ends, not as means to an end. And then you apply that maxim to the story. So 1 mark for the idea, 1 mark for your application of the idea. When it comes to Aristotle, his main idea is to become a virtuous person, to grow and mature and learn how to make good choices. So you might say that courage is required. So again, carrying over from Socrates and Plato to Aristotle, and in the chart that you did on these situations, you'd always refer to Aristotle as advocating a search for the virtuous character. So you are to act virtuously so you can become virtuous instead of vicious, a person of vices. And so you use a specific example of a virtue. It might be courage. It might be justice. It might be temperance. It might be high-mindedness. There's a whole series of charts you can use. Similar again to the movie To Kill a Mockingbird. So always for Aristotle, pick a virtue and say and define what the virtue is, and then apply it to the story. Excuse me, that I give you in the test. When it comes to Immanuel Levinas, Immanuel Levinas always says, look at the face of the person in the story. So if we go back to the story of the boy who cried wolf, before the boy would cry wolf, Immanuel Levinas would say, think of the faces of the people in the village who are all worried that there is a wolf attacking the sheep and we're not going to have dinner tonight or next night or next month because the sheep are all going to be taken away, destroyed, and killed. So before you cry wolf, think of the look on their faces. Yeah, you're going to have your fun, but that look on their faces is going to stay with you. And then when they come and find out you were fooling them, again, look at their faces again. Imagine what's going on in their minds. Okay? You're in a position of power because you cry wolf and they gave you responsibility to take care of the sheep. Whereas they are in a position of weakness because they're dependent on you. At a certain point, they're not going to believe you anymore. So when you cry wolf and there actually is a wolf, imagine in their heads, well, they're not coming. Why not? Because they don't think you're telling the truth anymore because they've been fooled and been laughed at so many times that now that there is, in fact, a real emergency, they're not coming. So Immanuel Levinas would say, again, always refer to the face. So to summarize, again, this is the idea of the test, is I'll give you a story. It's a nice story and includes a picture. So I'll give you a hint here. because it includes a picture of the people involved in the situation, then when it comes to Levinas, you're going to have to refer to that person's face. Look at that person's face. Look at the eyes. And then use the language of Levinas, the language of Kant, the language of Aristotle. So you talk about the thrill of astonishment. You talk about the face-to-face encounter, about the responsibility that comes for the other, how you not only make a decision that affects the person, but also more importantly for Emmanuel Levinas is you make a decision that applies to you. What do you discover about yourself? How do you define yourself in acting by saying yes to the situation or no to the situation? And Levinas would say, you've discovered and you've defined yourself to be either a selfless person, which will do good for the other person, or you become a selfish person when you turn your back and ignore them and don't even look at them and walk away and do nothing about it. Okay, so that's what's important in, at least in my class, and every other class you'll take next year in university or college if you go to college, is that you apply it but justify it, explain, and always refer to the story and the ideas and make a connection between them. Okay, we'll keep going. So for Ben, what they would do or what they would just say is virtuous in that situation to do. So the way you phrase the question is, if you were to take the approach of Aristotle, then explain how Aristotle would see the situation and what suggestions he would make for you and how to handle the situation. If it was Kant, is for Aristotle, it's the virtue ethics, the teleology. Where are you going with this? With Kant, it's deontology, so it has to do with the maxims. How do you apply the maxims and the idea of duty to the other and also duty to yourself? And therefore, you take the ideas and you approach it from an Aristotelian position or a Kantian position or a Levinas position and say, this is what Kant would say in the situation. This is what Levinas would say in the situation. You come in the second question, or the last question of the test, only two questions. First question is part A, B, and C, Aristotle, Kant, Levinas. Second question is you. What would you do in the situation confronted? That's where you put yourself in. Now, in that kind of question, you can say, well, I'm very much like Aristotle, so I believe that I would do this because I want to be virtuous. Or I like Kant, or I like Levinas, or I like a combination of two of them or all three of them. And you incorporate those in your answers because the second question would be worth 3 marks, and how you justify it is what you like. So you have total freedom for it, okay? Okay, let's keep going down here. Say, when do we get our progress report? Okay, what I was thinking, I was hoping to get it done this weekend and give you a progress report based on the first unit. Not quite done yet. So what I'll probably do is, I'd like to suggest, if you like this, I can postpone the test to Thursday. And that way it'll give me a chance to get your progress reports tonight. And then any issues, you email me and I'll scan your test and then you can see what you've done. If you got perfect, then you don't have to worry about it, okay? On your last test, and if you got perfect on the charts. But if you didn't get perfect, or even if you did get perfect and you want to see them, just let me know. I have to scan them. And I'll be more than happy to do that. I'm sorry I couldn't do that this weekend. My apologies. I'd like to give you a progress report at the end of every other test. So think about it. We'll talk at the end of the class and see whether or not we postpone the test to Thursday. I don't know what your other class schedule is like. So if you have 2 tests, I can change it. So we'll talk about, give me a chance to give you your progress report, look at it, talk about it, and then maybe give you an extra day for the test. I'm okay with that. Okay, so say I hope that answers. I'll come back to that. Azine, should we also know about secularism? No. The only thing that's on the test is Aristotle, Kant, Levinas, similar to your chart. So basically, take your chart and get rid of your point form notes and put them in English. Please remember, in my class, I don't count spelling and grammar. So you can take your point notes and simply capitalize the first letter, and I don't care about the grammar. Okay, so don't worry about that. Ben, okay, you're welcome, Ben. Azine, so when do you give us CPT? I hope to give it to you by tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. It's almost finished. I just have one more section to finalize. Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the class? You guys good? Should we change the test to Thursday in class? Show of hands. Should we keep the test tomorrow, or you want me to wait till Thursday? It's pretty straightforward. I'll still send you a progress report tonight. Okay, show of hands first, and then I'll ask you guys. Tomorrow or next day? Tomorrow? Okay. Okay, so in class, most students are okay for tomorrow. So let's keep it for tomorrow. I'll still send you a progress report today. And I will try to answer any emails later to you. Okay, David, did you check yesterday's homework yet? Because I didn't get email for the chart or the film market. David, no, I'm sorry. I was at a doctor's appointment, and after that, I was totally exhausted. Like I said, when I checked, I could receive the emails. I couldn't send anything else. So I had to leave the doctor's office, find a Tim Hortons at a mall, and then hook onto their Wi-Fi. And then I sent a couple emails to the office to Mr. Paravani. And then Mr. Paravani sent me email, says he managed to get through, and I thank Mr. Paravani for doing that for me. I also welcome Mr. Paravani back to school. At which point I left the mall, went back to the doctor's office. So David, my apologies. If you did not get a response email, it means I haven't opened it, and so I probably have about 100 emails today to look at. So my apologies. I'll get back to everybody, but I will send everybody a progress report so you can see the marks. What I'll do is I'll add the chart as well. I won't be able to mark To Kill a Mockingbird tonight, but that'll be on your next progress report. Okay. Kevin, no, who's this? Jade, what do you mean by 4 ideas from each philosopher? It'll be 4 marks. So like for Aristotle, you won't need necessarily 4 ideas. You can have 2 ideas, the 2 maxims. For Aristotle, you talk about the virtues, talk about what kind of virtuous person you're going to become. So you can use 4 different virtues. For Kant, duty is included in the maxim. So for Kant, all I want you to use is tell me what the 2 maxims are and apply them to the situation, just like the chart. Emmanuel Levinas, you can talk about the face-to-face encounter, talk about the astonishment of the experience, the humility that the person you encounter has, and the cry for help. And then also include, if you help the person, you discover the goodness you have inside of you, and you're a caring, loving, selfless kind of person. If you turn your back on the situation and on the person and on the person's face, then you discover that you are a selfish, arrogant, proud person. So each of the ideas, each of the persons will be 4 marks. So this test is going to be a lot of writing. And you can, again, use any of the ideas, and you have your PowerPoint, you have your homework assignment. with you, and it's an open notebook. And again, you're on your honor system, and character is important. And I trust that there'll be no cheating, and that there'll be no chatting during the test. During the test, if you have any questions, if you're in class, you can ask me, and if you're online, you can type something in. I'm thinking that it'll probably take you 45 minutes to do tests, perhaps 15 minutes per person, and then a little bit for yourself. And those who have IEPs or who are ESL will have extra time as usual. Okay, the idea is to try and give you an opportunity to do it really well in the open book test, despite a different way of learning. Okay, you're welcome, James. Any other questions before we move on? So test tomorrow? Okay, so we have the test tomorrow. I'll send you your progress report as I have up to date, not including To Kill a Mockingbird. And then I'll take up any questions afterwards. Okay, are we good? All right, so let's present secular worldview. Present. Okay, so secular worldview. Now I've sent you a copy. You guys, is it open online? Okay. So I've been having trouble with my USB, and it's corrupting all my documents. So I found a way of sending it a different way so you could have a copy of it. So this is not on the test. Okay, it's just Aristotle, Kant, Levinas. We're going to do secular worldview, and then we're going to do Gospel of Matthew and the Sermon on the Mount, and then Evangelium Vitae, and then we're going to have another test. So 2 or 3 assignments, test. 2 or 3 assignments, test. Okay, okay, secular worldview. So secular worldview is a way of thinking about the world where the only truth worth considering is one based on human values alone. The only values of this world matter. Okay? So secular worldview does not have any connection to God of any faith, nor does it have any connection to religious view. Secularism is today's modern religion, if you want to call it that. Sorry, I think the last ones I can't see. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay? And then I'll take. And if anyone online has questions, I will check as well. Okay, online after. Anthropocentric. It's human-centered. The value of human individuals and communities is central. It is both religious and non-religious in form. So here you have a solitary figure in the middle, represents all of humanity. So everything has to be centered on the values and ideas of the individual. This is a good way of symbolizing. So this is the kind of thing I asked you to do in your chart for yesterday, is define on one side and then Google an image, and then it becomes part of who you are. You appropriate the answer by the image. Humanism. A worldview that exalts human values and uses the dignity and the ultimate worth of human beings as its starting point. It recognizes that people are free and responsible individualism. Now, humanism can be in 2 forms: secular humanism and religious humanism, we're going to call Christian humanism. So here we have different values that are important for human being: the ability to think, to love, to live life, to learn, to protect each other and ourselves, and to defend. So certain values, I found this image here that I thought sort of captures the idea of humanism, the values that we share and we celebrate them. These are things that are important. These are things that are important for us and we hold very dear to us. Christian humanism. Christian humanism combines humanism and Christianity. Recognizes God-given dignity in the human. It believes in human freedom, responsibility, and learning. So I found the image of Michelangelo's depiction of the creation of man and woman. So Adam is on the other side of God's finger, and then on the other arm is Eve, already in God's mind and going to be included. So this is the Christian uh, religious idea that Michelangelo captured on the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. Okay. Now, going back to this one here, uh, we're important, we're valuable because God placed within each of us our souls, which makes us unique amongst all creatures. And with our souls, we have the ability of intellect to think and to reason, and will, which is to choose and to love others, the shared love we have within ourselves. And so that's very important. That each and every single human being, no matter what skin color, what height, what understanding of God, what religious understanding, what economic value, every single person is important, is valuable. Because in the Christian religious sense, we are made in the image and likeness of God. Doesn't mean that we look like God. God forbid. If we all look like God, what would you do with the females in class? I've lost a lot of my hair, so God has a big lock of hair here, so it wouldn't have to do with me. So it's not that we look like God, but that we have within us the same important thing that God placed within us, which is the ability to reason and the ability to choose and love. Okay? So that's what makes us unique. And each and every one of us has it. And we have it at the moment of conception, before we were even born. And that's important to understand that even before birth, that a fetus is a human being and should be respected and have their dignity kept safe. So secular humanism sort of detaches itself from God. It says we are important, yes, because we can think, because we can choose, we have intellect and will, but not because of any idea of God or religious sense. So here, the secularist idea says that we create this image of God as a projection of our own mind. That God is pure intellect, pure reason, because we get the idea from ourselves. So it's only our own mind, our own reasoning, and our own choices that are important. And anything that we may decide, we do so as human to human, not because of any relationship with God. So secularism recognizes that human rights and freedom is important, and that leads to great economic, industrial, and scientific progress. So it's almost like a barrier between us and God. That God, it doesn't really play a role. In fact, secularist idea is going to say there is no God. It's just us. And in a more extreme sense, it's just me. Secular describes a way of living as if God or ultimate reality did not exist. Secular sees no divine purpose to life, believes that humanity is alone in the universe. So I found this image where we're calling out for God, but all there is this guy. That we are by ourselves. And this idea of referring to God and religion is irrelevant. And that's a society that we try to deal with as we live in our society. We're essentially a society, a secular society. Anyone that does have religious viewpoints should keep it private. That's your own beliefs, but don't bring it into the public sphere. Okay. Deism. And deism has to do with what's called the clock and the clockmaker. So deism used the analogy of the clock and the clockmaker. God is the clockmaker, and the world is the clock. Once the world was created and wound up, it would run on its own with no further intervention from its creator. So those people who are secularists who do believe that there is some type of God or divine force or pure reason, something ultimate beyond our control, still say, or some still say, that after the world was created, God left us on our own. That even if we were going to reconnect later on, in this life, we're on our own. So the clockmaker makes the clock, somebody uses it or buys it and uses it, and then the clock runs on its own. No connection to the clockmaker, unless, of course, the clock breaks and it doesn't work anymore. In which case, you get it send it back to the person who made it to repair it so it works again. It's interesting. My daughter's phone, no, my daughter's iPad. All of a sudden, there's a big line came down the middle of the screen. So we brought it to the Apple store to get repaired. And they said, nope, we don't repair it. We'll give you a new one. It's under warranty. It's cheaper for them to give you a new one. So it took a couple of hours to download all the information, and she ended up with a new iPad. If your watch breaks, you go to a watch repair person, and they fix it for you. It's cheaper. But when it comes to Apple, they don't repair it. And we asked, what do you do with the old one? And they wouldn't tell us. They probably recycle it or for parts, or they probably repair it and then sell it. But we don't care because my daughter got a new iPad. That's how they repair it. Okay. Rationalism. I love this picture. The act of questioning any form of knowledge that cannot be proven by the use of human reason. Rationalists believe that the universe is governed by certain laws which could be discovered without the help of religion or theocentric worldviews. Theocentric meaning God-centered. So rationalist is part of every tradition we're looking at. God gave us a brain, use it. How many times your parents have told you that? Administrators told you, what were you thinking when you got in trouble? I wasn't thinking. I was mad, or I was tired, or I got angry, or I was jealous. Okay, a rationalist idea always asking questions, and we saw this right from the beginning. Socrates asking questions is dialectic. Aristotle asked questions to find the virtuous person. Kant, what would you do if you were in the other situation? Emmanuel Levinas, put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Look at the person's face. What do you think is going on there? So all these ideas we looked at so far are all rationalists. Nothing wrong with rationalism, being reasonable or looking for reason. It's part of who we are. And when we don't act rationally, when we don't think, then we act based on emotions. That's when we get ourselves in trouble. Okay. Atheistic worldview is a system of thought that dispenses or gets rid of God altogether. Atheistic worldview believes that all gods and any god were only creations of the human imagination. So outside the bubble here, a nice World Religions poster of different religious symbols. Star of David, two crosses, The moon is Islam. You have the Om symbol on top right. For Hinduism, you have yin yang, and Shintoism, and you have the Buddha there. And this is, of course, an image from the United States. And they believe in a separation, no longer of church and state, but of the religious and state. Start off with the church and state with the Christianity, and you separate all the religious ideas, including every other religion, and then you put people in a bubble, and you operate as if there is no God, and there is no God view or religious scripture view. Any questions so far, guys? Good? So atheism is the act of believing that all gods and any god were only creations of human imagination and do not exist. So it's an extension of who we are, what we imagine, in the perfect sense, in the ultimate sense, in the ultimate superior sense. Consumerism. An attitude to life that rates material goods and personal appearances as more important than inner development or true personal relationships. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. What's more important in life is material goods and personal experiences. So material goods are things that we have. You are what you have. What kind of clothes you have. What kind of computer you're using. What kind of phone. What kind of car you drive. What symbols on your shoe. Nike, Adidas, Levinas. So whatever those symbols represent become who you are. So to have is more important than to be. Personal appearances, how you look, how you smell, what kind of deodorant you use. My favorite example to give here is Axe. And Axe plays on people's desire for relationships. So there's one Axe commercial a long time ago where this guy's walking by himself, lonely, and on a beach, and he puts on some Axe, and about 200 women pop out of nowhere, some from the water, some from the jungle on the other side of the beach, some from the sand, some parachuting from the top. And so the idea, if you wear Axe, it's like a magnet to attract girls. Very sexist. So a young grade 9 student comes to St. Rob's, wants to meet girls, middle of the hallway, takes out his Axe, puts on some Axe, and says, "Here I am," and nobody comes. Because you're not Axe. You're the person you are, not the perfume or cologne you wear. So if you look at the products on the map, these are all part of commercials that you've been bombarded with. On the top right-hand side, Coca-Cola. In class, anyone remember the sort of the idea of Coke? What is Coke? If you had any Coke commercials still in your head. The Coke is the real thing. If I say just do it, what brand? Nike, yeah. So all these commercials have certain symbols with them, and you become part of it. Okay. In the middle of Europe is a big yellow M that represents McDonald's. So this is our consumer society. Who you are and your good relationship with other people are not important. It's possessing, having one of these products makes you who you are. We had a hard time when our kids were young. They got sort of blinded by the McDonald's commercials, and it was the toys that they wanted. from McDonald's, not the food, which was awful. And so we had to, when we took our kids to McDonald's, because my wife and I were temporarily weak in our decision making, we had to insist that the toy doesn't get open till the meal is finished. That was hard because all they want to do is open the toy, play with the toy, and forget about the food. Okay, idolatry. It's an old religious term that often misunderstood in today's modern time. Idolatry is treating material objects as if they were sacred. It values such things as personal vanity, money, power, fame, and glamour. That's the most important things in the world. Okay, so all those things become gods that we worship. So in this picture here, bowing down to money, 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 money. Excuse me. Most important thing in life. Devote all your attention, all your effort to making money, to accumulating money, and to getting money off other people who have it. So the more money you have, the more important you are, more powerful you are, more famous you are, and you're always chasing after money, as if money were a god. We call this idolatry. Money is an idol that we worship, we want. Now, it could be other things as well. It could be good looks, personal vanity. It could be fame. I want to be famous. It could be power. I want to be power and influential. I want to be a star. So those things are also idolatry. It could be sex. You think sex, you breathe sex, you want sex, and want more. It could be your phones. You idolize your phones. You're never separated from your phones. You have to touch them. You have to see what's on your screen. You have to listen to what's coming out of your screen. It could be your social media on your phone. We saw this with PCA, autocorrect humanity, where we live in a cave, as Plato described it, of images coming from our phone. And God forbid you should be detached from your phone. You should lose it in school if you confiscate it, or it should run out of battery. Then all of a sudden you feel lost and confused because you are separated from your attachment to the phone. Individualism. So I gave you one in the email. Here's one that I found. The exaltation of the individual means raising up to a higher importance. Number one, the exaltation of the individual self over all other people and all other considerations is an attitude that glorifies personal needs at the expense of other people. Okay, as we talked about last week, I think one of Beyonce's songs is "Me, Myself, and I." Only people that are important: me, myself, and I. That's individualism. It leads to a self-centered view of life and other people, where only you are the center of the world. It's the extreme form of individualism is pride and arrogance. I'm better than everybody else. I deserve more than everybody else. I am number one. Everybody else is number two, or they're all losers. The extreme form of individualism. This is why it's so hard in this COVID time to get people to think about others and wear masks and socially distance and not go up to Wasaga Beach and look at cars or Hamilton, not go to parks and other beaches to party with a whole bunch of people, because people tend to be very individualistic. It's hard to get them to be social. Why should I care about anybody else? I'm fine, I'm okay, but others are not. Others may not be. You may not be. But it's so hard in our society to get people to think of other people because we base everything on the idea of being individuals. We're free. We can reason. We can choose. And so can everyone else. So, like Protagoras said, do what you want and stay away from me. This is why I gave you the journal, starter. Others can become my help. Because you're prohibiting my freedom. You're stopping me from being who I am. I'm an individual, and I'm important. And I'm the most important person right now in this room and online. So how do you get people who are so proud and arrogant to be individuals to cooperate and give up some freedom, like having to wear a mask, so that others can be safe? Especially thinking about the old people. See, back in March, it was the old people who were getting it. Old people getting sick and dying. Now 60, 70% of them are young people. So young people might be able to survive, but you're going to bring it home to older people who may not be able to survive as well, who will struggle. And just because you recover doesn't mean you're not recovering for a long time. Still not sure what's happening when you get this to your heart and to your brain and other parts of your body. So this is the problem with individualism, and unfortunately, this is a society we tend to live in, a very individualistic society. Which leads us to the great Protagoras, moral relativism. So see how it's all building up? Why I brought in Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and Kant and Levinas, because they're bringing into understanding what our society is all about. And this is moral relativism. And moral relativist says, who am I to judge? Little caption on this image. There are no absolute values, only those that are in the secular culture. Everything is dependent on one's point of view or opinion. So this is where we're at right now. Everyone believes that they have an opinion, and they should have an opinion. But like Socrates said, we should search for the answers. If you stop thinking, you stop questioning, you stop learning. If you stop learning, you stop understanding what life's about. What I define as being vicious, opposite of a virtuous person. Okay? And any good you may have is only temporary, not permanent. So this is, we live in a secular, individualistic, morally relativist view. And it's really hard to get people to help each other and cooperate. Okay, so just question number 2, just a summary of the 3 types of humanism. Okay, Christian humanism recognizes God-given dignity in humanity and believes in human freedom, responsibility, and learning. Always remember that we're made in the image and likeness of God. That's what makes us special, and God gave it to us at the moment of conception. And therefore, we have it, whether people recognize it, whether people accept it, and respect it. So our dignity is not dependent on anyone's approval. No one can take it away from us. No one can give it to us because we already have it. We say that it's inherent within our own being, the fact that we were created, that we were conceived, born, and we are alive. Scientific humanism recognizes scientific mind and the scientific method as humanity's greatest achievement. So the Christian humanist recognizes that we have the ability to reason and therefore create, understand science. Scientific humanism tends to sometimes separate it from the religious, but we have it anyway. Secular humanism recognizes no divine purpose to life and believes that humanity is alone in the universe. Human life is not dependent on a sacred order, that means God, or a transcendent deity, God. Okay? So 3 types of humanism. Okay, let's stop right here a second before I go into the assumptions and see if there's any questions, and we'll come back to this. Okay, so I stopped presenting for a while. I'm back here. Uh, any questions from the class so far? Okay, are there any questions from students online? Let's see what we have here. Uh, okay, Azine, I'll come back to Levinas again. Ben, so what is the difference between secularism and atheism? Um, not much. Secularism has nothing to do with God or the religious viewpoint. It's a view that God is either non-existent and therefore plays no role in society, or if he does exist, left us alone and we're on our own. A lot of the laws that we have passed are inspired by the religious. For example, God commanded that we should not kill each other, and therefore murder, homicide becomes part of human law, inspired by the religious law and the law of God. But we don't refer to the religious views. We say this is what we hold in common as human beings. Therefore, we have what's called a social contract. Okay. We'll be talking more about that later on in the next unit. Any other questions based on the presentation so far? Okay, let's go back then to the presentation. Okay, is this what's on your screen? Try to make sure that this is on the screen. You're not on it? Just checking, make sure that this is what's on your screen. Okay, so question number 3 from the homework are 6 assumptions of secularism. So I put them down here for you. There is no divine purpose. This, I think, will answer your question from before. Difference between secularism and atheism. You'll see how they're interconnected. There is no divine purpose or creator of the cosmos. So the separation between our world and whatever imaginary world, which is religion. Nature can be observed scientifically, but is only matter. No, not that it matters, it's matter. So science is concerned with matter and the laws of nature. So if you can figure out the laws of nature, there's like Sir Isaac Newton, and you're sitting under a tree and this apple falls in your head, it's, oh, gravity. You can figure out what the gravitational pull is. I remember teaching it using what's called a Newton scale. Then you can figure out how gravity works, and you can apply gravity to make life easier for us by inventing and creating what's called machines. So it's all scientific. So everything in the world is scientific, including human beings. So learn about the science behind this and live according to the laws of nature. And use those laws of nature for your benefit. Each human person is self-sufficient and stands alone with no need of God, the supernatural, or ultimate reality. What it's really saying is that we're all God, and we all make our own rules and laws. All values are relative and created by humans. There are no moral absolutes, nothing that is absolutely right or absolutely wrong. So here you have your moral relativism. Wearing a mask is right. Not wearing a mask is right. How do you convince people? How do you convince those people who are protesting, marching, and hugging each other with no masks? Watching these fancy cars up north in Wasaga Beach. This one young kid says, "We owned it. This is ours." What did you own? Made everybody put everybody in a dangerous situation. Religious worldviews are to be discarded, so get rid of them, as attempts to deny the inherent dignity of humanity. So religious views get in the way of science, get in the way of progress, get in the way of human beings. We are grown up now and no longer need fairy tales about a sacred realm. It's a story that your parents told you when you were small. I still remember my father telling me when it's raining and thunder and lightning, go to bed because God's angry. And you're still up. His idea of this fictitious deity angry because I'm still not asleep. The next time my father came in, I closed my eyes because I was sleeping. I wasn't. Society should structure its communities around the historical and human institutions. This is what we create ourselves, not what God created. Be the church, the synagogue, the mosque, the temple alone. Think about government, like agencies. That's what's important. That's the new religion. There's no higher being or ultimate reality, no divine purpose to life. Humanity is alone in the universe. And what the secularist idea says is that there's no life after that. And therefore, live life to its fullest. That includes exploit people, take advantage of people, because they'll do the same thing to you. That's the whole purpose of John Paul Sartre's idea. Do to others before they do it to you is the golden rule of secularism. Don't be a fool. Okay, let's do a bit of a historic perspective. Question number 4. The rise of modern science. How do we get to where we are right now? In the 5th century, we call this the age of discovery, where people started to travel and discover new lands. This is at least from the Western tradition, because the East went through the same problems as we're going through. So this is a Western perspective. In the 5th century, they started to leave Europe, move away from what they established in Europe to find new lands, new areas, new people. And so you have Christopher Columbus sailing, looking for India, ends up in Cuba. With the age of discovery became new mathematics and new instruments, the astrolabe, so that you can let the stars guide you, better maps, mariner's compass, so you can sail the seas and know where north, south, west, and east are, and a sextant, again, to be able to guide and navigate. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Again, we talked about St. Isaac Newton. Most important discovery, the force law. F equals ma. F represents force, m equals mass, and a means acceleration. I bring Mr. Udanian into my class to explain this properly. But there he is, found out the law of force and that from gravity, and then apply this idea, this law of nature, to the world we live in. The Enlightenment period, free thinkers separate from the confines of the religious views of the church, following way back to Socrates' dialectic. questions and answers, question everything, even God himself, creation, evolution, uh, humanity. Science and reason became important. My truth is what I say, relativist versus thinking. The science movement began to explain human society and the workings of nature. Thus, many began to question the knowledge that could not be proven by the use of human reason. They believed that the universe was governed by certain laws which could be discovered without the help of religion or theocentric worldviews. The use of human reason to understand laws governing the universe became prominent here. So a little bit of moving away from relativism to something, find out some type of objective scientific truth. Religious reviews were reduced to superstitions. Religious reviews could be filled with superstition and could be used to prevent human freedom and progress. However, many scholarly people began to stop practicing their religious faith and adopted an attitude of skepticism to all religious claims. With the advancement of science, religious concerns were considered irrelevant to society. So we have some superstitions here. We have umbrellas. You don't open an umbrella inside. You open the umbrella outside. Black cat. You don't interrupt a black cat walking by. Black cat's a sign something bad's going to happen. You don't walk under a ladder. Superstition. A mirror breaks means bad luck. Something's going to happen. And I believe that's a 4-leaf clover as opposed to a 3-leaf clover, which might be good. And a shoehorn, a horseshoe horn, which brings good luck. So some of the things that those people of the Enlightenment were concerned about was knowledge. Sounds familiar? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Liberty, which is another word for freedom. They're interested in scientific progress or progress of humanity. They're interested in the idea of toleration of different people, different nationalities. Fraternity is usually brotherhood, but also includes brotherhood and sisterhood, that we're all in it together. They started looking at more representative governments, constitutional governments, not government ruled by a king who becomes a tyrant or ruled by a group of people, oligarchs. And of course, separation of church and state. The church's power had to be reduced and people's power had to be raised. So you have revolutions occur in France and the United States, and you had charter rights created, constitutions where the people became the sovereign. So really going back to the time of Athens and Greece, rule of the people. New technology and industrial production, especially with the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, factories, machines, and today, robots. This would have been 200 employees in an auto shop, and now it's 200 robots. So a lot of auto workers lost their jobs. And we used to think this was a bad thing, and it is. But it took a lot of other people to make these robots. So we lost one type of job, but we created other jobs. And of course, we need people to fix these robots when they break down, more people. But what happened to those auto workers that were working on assembly lines? In Oshawa, the General Motors plant, there used to be 30,000 auto workers. Last year, it was reduced to 3,000 auto workers at the GM plant. And today, it's zero. So 30,000 people lost their jobs, 3,000 people lost jobs, and now nobody's there. We're trying to transition to electric cars, plus we bring back some jobs. But automation has destroyed good jobs and people's livelihoods. Although science interested many, it was the technology that drew the whole crowd. New technology would mean new wealth, as it transformed the natural world because of the industrial production. And then we moved to a global economy and global market. Technology and industry drew the entire world into a new system. Today, it is so powerful and widespread that we talk of global economy and global market. So somehow our free trade agreements and production is all intertwined globally. Okay, different atheistic philosophies. The thought of God was only creations of the human imagination with no benefits and prevented progress humanity. So there are no gods, no nations, no money, and no human rights except in our collective imagination. Excuse me. Karl Marx. He called religion the opiate of the masses. We're all high on religion, like we're high on cocaine. Opiate is cocaine. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the sentiment of the heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. So if we take religion like we take a fix, a cigarette or cocaine. Friedrich Nietzsche. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. There has never been a greater deed, and whosoever shall be born after us, for the sake of this deed, he shall be part of a higher history than all history hereafter. So Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the religion debased the human person. It failed to appreciate what was best about humanity, convincing others that they were weak and of little value when compared to the infinite. So God's up here, and we're down here. In many of his writings, he talked about the death of God, meaning that the idea of God belonged to the infancy of humanity. So this is God's important when you're a kid. When you grow up, you have to grow up, move on. Okay. I got this from Mr. Wood's class. I love this poster. How many of you have Mr. Wood? You see this poster? It's in the left-hand side. This is from Mr. Wood's class. God is dead, Nietzsche, 1882. So he declared that God was dead. And 1900, Nietzsche is dead, God. So Nietzsche died, but God's still here. I love this poster. So it epitomizes the religious view that's wrong with Nietzsche's ideas. Sigmund Freud, he believed that religion was a form of misguided thinking. He saw God as a human fantasy arising from the childish need to obey and be cared for by a father figure. So Freud regards God as an illusion based on infidelity for the powerful father figure. Religion necessary to help us restrain violent impulses earlier in the development of civilization can now be set aside in favor of reason and science. To see the influence of reason and science into our lives, into society. Excuse me, this mess is really bothering me. So, what do we do with our society and our lives? Secular culture does not consider religious activities to be very important. Concepts like holy places, church, mosque, temple, synagogues, and holy times, Rosh Hashanah, Easter, Diwali, Chinese New Year, are seen as having little relevance besides the power of modern technology. Prayer and sacred ritual becomes private affairs with no place in public. So if you want to be religious, you want to celebrate religious viewpoints and read religious texts and have religious celebrations, go ahead. But not part of society. It's something that you want to do in private. So religion becomes persecuted in the public sphere. The religious people of all religions are the persecuted minorities. You're allowed to have them. No one's going to tell you what to believe in, but you don't make it public for other people. Keep it private. This is the problem we have in our society. We're in a Catholic school, but there's a big push to get rid of Catholic schools because they shouldn't exist. They're religious schools. Consumerism and moral relativism are a reflection of individualism because they are an attitude to life that rates material goods and personal appearances as more important than inner development and true personal relationships. Survive, more stuff, hurry, sale. Again, I did more relativism, so I've included this image twice. My truth is what I say, it's relativist. So this is the society we live in, a consumer-based society, buy, more, and do whatever you want. Freedom is important. Having is more important than being. You are what you have, not who you are. If these things consume the human, one will allow materialistic goods instead of the inner self. Having is more important than being. Things become more important than yourself. Last one. Last slide. Science without religion is lame or disabled. Religion without science is blind. If you're interested, Pope John Paul II wrote an encyclical called Faith and Reason, which is religion and science. And what the Pope says is that religion and science are like two wings of a bird. On one wing you have religion, and another wing you have science. The Pope says you can't fly unless you use both, religion and science, similar to what Einstein's saying here. Don't separate religion and science, keep them together. They're important. Only way you're going to fly and be wise and achieve knowledge is by being religious and scientific. Don't be afraid of either. Okay, and that's it. Give me a second, guys. I gotta get the screen working again. I don't know why it keeps doing this to me. Keep changes. Okay, we should be back now online. So first in class, any questions on secularism? No? Good. Any questions for the class online on the secularism worldview? You have a copy of the PowerPoint, so it's all taken care of. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break then. And in 5 minutes, I'll give you time to work on the homework for today, and give you a chance to also, while you're working on Matthew's assignment on Matthew, I'll take any questions for the homework. And for those of you who are here, I'll show you your updated marks so you can see it, and that way I'll take care of that. And I'll still send you a copy of it. Okay. So Michelle, no, you don't have to hand in the homework today. The assignment on Matthew is, Matthew's church and the kingdom of God, that's just for homework. So I'll take that up tomorrow after the test. Okay. Can you explain what is secularism again? Secularism is a belief that only humans are important. It's not religious at all. There's no role for God to be in our lives. It's atheistic, it's individualistic, and it's morally relative. So if you look at the images I gave you, so our society says that if you have a religious view, keep it to yourself, keep it private. In the public sphere, which is society, everyone can believe whatever they want, and you can believe in religion or not believe in religion. That's your choice. And but run society as if there's no religious values. And each individual is important because they can think and they can choose for themselves. They don't need other people to do that for them. And our society tends to therefore become more consumeristic, more materialistic. Okay? Okay, so take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. And yeah. What Saki was saying is that teach a boy is learning to listen down, just talk to him, and try to come up with why we do it,